Welcome to A Healthy Curiosity, the podcast that explores what it takes to be well in a busy world with self-care strategies from Chinese medicine. I'm your host, Brody Welch, here to support you on your journey of health, happiness, and personal evolution. Today on A Healthy Curiosity, we take on not only what it takes to be well in a busy world, but what it takes to be well in a toxic world. My guest is Alexx Stuart, who, in addition to being a lovely person, helps people sort out not only what to put into our bodies, but what to put on our bodies, and perhaps more importantly, what to not put on our bodies. She's passionate about helping people make healthy choices for both themselves and the planet. I had a blast talking to Alexx on her podcast, The Low Tox Life, a couple of weeks back, when actually instead of chatting for just an hour or so, it ended up being more like 2 due to some technical glitches involving Skype, because she's in Australia and I'm in North America. And rather than it being a total drag to have to re-record the conversation, it ended up being really fun because she's so engaging and genuine. We discovered that we both have a background in political science and activism before coming to what we're doing now. And here's the conversation. Hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the show, Alexx.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm really fantastic.
I love that we're making this connection halfway across the world where you're talking to me from the future tomorrow.
Oh, that's so great. It's so true though, isn't it? It is really actually quite crazy.
It really is. And I love that's one of the fun things about having a podcast is getting to connect with amazing, smart, fun women. I had such a blast talking to you on your show, on the Low Tox Life, a little while ago. And I'm really pleased that you were able to come talk to me and share your knowledge with my listeners here today.
Yeah, well, I would have felt bad. I'm just kidding. Of course, I'm happy to be here.
So, Alexx, I'd love for you to share a little bit about the work that you do regarding the Low Tox Life.
Thanks. Well, it's a long story and, usually when you've got a 2-hour workshop and you get to spend a lot of time with people, you get to really explain how everything kind of came about. But I will give you the short story in the interest of your beautiful podcast, not taking up too much time on the history, and just say that I was quite a typical chick. I grew up in fast food, convenience, prestige makeup aspiration land here in Sydney, Australia, and had a few healthy issues, but because I was and my family was so ingrained in the standard medical model, if you like, we weren't really out of the box thinkers. We're people who believed all the marketing campaigns or the TV ads. We bought things outside of produce, of course, that were because I had seen them on TV, whether it was a impulse deodorant spray or a trendy new yogurt. And things like headaches were really a big issue for me growing up. I used to get migraines as well, and I had chronic tonsillitis. And those things sort of compounded through my early 20s. And the first thing that left me was my migraines. Coincidentally, I thought, with the exit of the beauty industry. But of course, in retrospect, there was absolutely no coincidence at all. And it was because of my sensitivity to a number of the ingredients in that industry that are so commonly used, right?
So you were working in the beauty industry
at the
time.
Was.
Wow.
Yes.
And you were having all these symptoms that were, in retrospect, very obviously connected. But at the time, that wasn't on your radar screen.
Absolutely not on my radar. And, these days, thanks to social media and thanks to the general acceptance of holistic therapies, everyone would at least see one extra person who lives in an urban setting or even in a rural setting, because there's just this understanding that it's impossible for one person to have one type of education and know everything about how to help people. It just actually makes no sense. It's not to say that doctors suck, because they are awesome. I had a leaky tear duct thing a few months ago. ago, I had an operation, sorted, done, miracle. So, and with my emergency C-section 50 years ago, my son and I would both be dead. So I'm extremely grateful to what advances the modern medical model has made, but it's not the answer to absolutely everything. And my first clue of that was when my chronic tonsillitis escalated, and I'll never forget it because I was on the third round of antibiotics, and by my late 20s I was on like the highest, most crazy level of antibiotics you could be on. And you can imagine if the first 2 rounds didn't work, they brought out the big guns, which also unfortunately did not work. And a friend of mine said, after she saw me spitting into a water bottle when she came to drop off some soup, because I couldn't bear the idea of swallowing, she's like, okay, I'm intervening here, we got to do something. Have you considered seeing a naturopath? And it was the first introduction into naturopathy I had ever had. But I went, and she put me on a couple of immune boosting herbs and a fast for 3 days of nothing but very well cooked brown rice and carrots done in chicken broth. Mm-hmm. And I was cured.
So you basically, you simplified your diet, you supported your immune system in being able to handle what was being thrown at it. But really the problem was, it seems like, taking something away rather than adding something to your life.
Yes, exactly. And what else went away were all the breakfast shakes and the all the other processed things that I had. I was generally quite a healthy eater, but at the end of the day, what was padded out in between, or for those quick breakfasts on the go, were far from real food options. And so when I made that change, my body responded so quickly on a basic immune boosting level of just being stronger, because it wasn't having to cope with crazy things all day long.
Yeah, it sounds like it was able to recognize the inputs that were coming in instead of the what do I do with this?
Yeah, exactly. That's how I describe it to my son. You couldn't have said it better. It's like, what the heck is this? I don't know what to do. And then all that energy spent trying to figure it out is taken away from our immune system, who then just eventually crumble and give way because, all the body's energy is spent trying to digest stuff we were never meant to in the first place.
Exactly. It's like that energy could so be spent in a better way. In so many better ways, really.
Totally. And so then the second wave, I guess, was when my son was born. I had already started to look at what I was cleaning the house with, a couple of the basic exposures. But when it came to my baby shower, I remember getting a very well-known typical baby brand gift pack type thing. And for the first time in my life, I turned it around and I looked at the ingredients. I don't know why. I had never looked at the ingredients before, and I laugh because as a trainer and a sales manager in the cosmetics and beauty industry, we were always in the most crazy nerdy detail able to describe the rare algae from the Aegean Sea or the, this and that are the plant actives in that $400 moisturizer. But we had no idea, nor did anyone ever talk about all those other ingredients on the bottom 3/4 of the label. And
the impronounceable ones.
Yeah, exactly. And I looked at this thing, I thought, there's no way I'm going to be putting that on my baby. That comes from petroleum, that comes from some synthetic laboratory, and harmful, carcinogenic, you name it, it was in there. And I was like, what the heck is going on? So it was in having my son that I then went through that next wave of thinking about not just what went in my body, but what went on my body and what we were having around us in the home.
And so what kinds of changes did you start to make with having a baby?
Gosh, I'm not someone who does things by halves, Brady.
Yeah.
I made a whole bunch of changes. Where did I start? I stopped using perfume. That's definitely where I started, because I started to learn about what was in things like scented candles and everything that was synthetically fragranced, basically.
Can you go into that a little bit? I'd love to just, because I know that fragrance is one of those things that sounds so innocuous, but really is kind of air pollution.
It totally is. Air pollution is absolutely the way to see it. Lung pollution, I prefer even more so because it helps us really realize that we are being polluted. And I always joke with my e-course participants and say, basically, guys, we are getting the worst news out on day 2 so that it is out there and we can freak out and then move on and start getting positive about all these changes. But the fact is that any kind of fragrance you have, any fragranced product, whether it be your fabric softener, your scented candle, your deodorant, your body lotion, you got to make sure that thing is natural. And if it is synthetic, there are a couple of, say, synthetics, but call those companies up, write them an email and make sure they are phthalate free. And that, in spelling, if you want to check it out on the internet, is PHTHALATES.
And why are phthalates so bad?
So they are part of a group of chemicals called endocrine disrupting chemicals, or hormone disruptors, if you want to say it that way. Mm-hmm. And basically, if you think about how hard it, do you know any women out there who go, oh yeah, my hormones are perfect?
Yeah, right.
Oh, we all say that every day, right? Not. So our hormones are really hard to balance in this crazy modern life that we have set ourselves the task of trying to live in any semblance of balance. And if we're also throwing at our ever so delicate hormones chemicals that can come into our system through our skin or our mouths, depending, you know, you guys over in the US have a huge issue around dairy milk and hormones fed to the cattle and the dairy cows. And so it's not just products putting on your skin, it's also what we're eating. And these things mimic our actual hormones, especially and most commonly estrogen. And we all know what the breast cancer stats are. They're not great. And I just believe that anything we can do once there is research to suggest that we should be cautious. You know, I don't think this is fear-mongering. I don't think this is scare tactics to talk about it. You know, I don't even have any products to sell. I just sell education. Yeah. But I'm passionate about us being aware and going, okay, so if there's this candle that's just a beautiful, simple beeswax candle and there's nothing else added to it, and maybe I could just diffuse some essential oils in the background, compared to this candle, which is some weird GM soy or petroleum-based candle, and it's made in China and they use a lot of lead in their wicks over there, and it smells vaguely like strawberries, but a real punnet of strawberries doesn't actually smell like that, so that's probably fake strawberries, which is probably synthetic fragrance, which is probably phthalates. And so you have this, like, which one would you choose? We've got to get back to being smart people, not just in our jobs. You know, we save all our critical thinking for our jobs. Put it in our personal lives as well. This is our health and the future generations' health at stake here. And start just choosing the logical, more natural option.
Oh, I think that fake strawberry scent is absolutely more important than balanced hormones.
You were addicted to those scratch and sniffs when you were a kid, weren't you? Do you remember those?
The fragrant markers. Right?
Yeah. Those were everywhere, and it's really hard to completely eradicate because I just picked up a computer cord right now, and that's a really bendy kind of stretchy plastic, and that's probably got phthalates in it as well, or the rubber duck might have phthalates, or your phone might have phthalates in it. It's everywhere. So anything that you can do to minimize that exposure is of course going to be of benefit to our health overall, because just like we said in the example when we were talking about my tonsillitis, where processed food was taking energy away from my immune system, where my digestive system was going, what the heck is that? My detoxification pathways are also going, what the heck is that? I'm trying to make sense of what just came through my lungs. I've never seen this stuff before. It doesn't belong here. And then again, with the body's energy not spent doing the things it should be doing, instead spending a whole bunch of time on trying to figure out what these foreign invaders are.
And exactly. And that stuff that just ends up getting stashed in the body when we can't fully eliminate it, which is, I think, scary.
That's exactly right. And especially in our fats. So if we've got a BMI of over 20, then there's that consideration as well.
That's a point that I make all the time in terms of getting people to really care about digesting well, because we need to be really good fat burners in order to be good detoxifiers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that requires our liver and gallbladder to be working in a healthy way, and it requires that we move our lymph and that, you know, that we exercise, and getting the fat soluble stuff out of the body is absolutely key. Going back to a point that you made about the skin, or you mentioned the skin, I think a lot of people don't necessarily see the skin as an organ of absorption. You know, it's like that we often think about it as the outer coating of our body, but actually it's an organ of detoxification. But everything that we put on our skin, we're basically drinking into, directly into our bloodstreams.
Yes. And look, not every single chemical can pass through the epidermis and dermis, not every single one. So again, it's not a freak out, oh my God, every single thing is getting through, because it's all about molecule size, and that's probably getting a little bit nerdy for
go for it. Yeah.
No, well, like on a podcast chat, you can't like show the cute diagrams and all that kind of stuff. But I might link for you guys in the show notes. I'll send you a couple of links that really explain that so that you can have a little think about that if that's something you do want to nerd out on more. But awesome. I will say, yes, the skin is our largest organ, and what we are putting on it, of course, is going to greatly affect it. There is a lot of research, for example, with sun care that says the sun creams that we're putting on have carcinogens in them that are awakened, if you like, with the heat of the sun. I mean, how ironic is that?
It's like just add sunshine and you suddenly get worse toxicity.
Yes, exactly. From the very thing that is supposed to be, looking after us in the sun. So there's some crazy stuff going on. And I just want to urge at this point, anyone out there who has maybe gotten into the 15-minute mark and gone, oh crap, everything I use is killing me and I'm doomed. And, I am not going to save you from having a freak out, because when you have this information for the very first time, yes, it is quite freaky, and it is totally understandable that you would feel confused and angry. But I really like to think of those emotions as then becoming springboards for focusing way more on how exciting it is that we now know stuff about how to do stuff better for our health and the health of the planet and the family around us.
Exactly. I know that your website has a very positive tone to it in terms of people not being all gloom and doom, and helping people to really feel empowered that there's things that we actually can do because knowledge is power. And so I'm curious, are there first steps that you encourage maybe people who are a little bit less like you in terms of not wanting to do it all at once? But what would you say is like the easiest thing to cut for someone just wanting to reduce their level of unnecessary toxins that are making their way into the body, either through body products or things in our environment? What do you see as like maybe the big three to avoid?
Yes, and it is easy. And in doing these three, you're avoiding the biggest amount of exposure that you're currently getting. And so my first one, when you're thinking about personal care, is your body lotion. If you're a daily body lotion or body moisturizer user, it stands to reason that you would start with the body lotion or cream before you went to the face, because the face is teeny tiny, the body is rather big. So
just from a question of surface area.
Yes, exactly. So, and again, if you're someone who doesn't want to be wasteful, look, there are many ways to do things. There are charities that accept open goods, and people are in two minds about that. But I don't want to give something now that I know it's toxic. That doesn't seem right. So, but I like to just take comfort in the fact that that's the last pot or tube you're going to buy, and that's a wonderful thing to be celebrating rather than focusing too much on how to dispose of it. So you can either get rid of it today and head online, and I'll give you a couple of great beauty sites in both Australia and the US and the UK actually, so that wherever you guys are listening today, there'll be a resource for you for a more local form of shipping. And just get onto something natural, and you're looking for something that doesn't have just the word fragrance in it, because usually that's where the synthetic fragrance lies. You want a couple of asterisks and derived from essential oils or phthalate free to be on that ingredient list. Do not read the front of the packet anymore. That is not going to give you the information you need. You've got to get to that ingredient list.
And then great to know.
Yeah. And then the second thing I would change is your multi-purpose spray. So the thing that you tend to clean with when you wipe down the counters in the kitchen or when you are giving the bathroom a bit of a spruce up, that spray bottle does not need to be two different products for a start. And secondly, you can either do a super cheap DIY version from today with half white vinegar, half water and 20 drops of essential oil, or you can buy any number of fantastic natural products now available all over over the world. The thing with natural cleaning products, just as with natural personal care, there are still, though, a whole bunch of brands that are pretending to be natural that are kind of doing a half-assed job. So there's still
the sneaky greenwashing that happens, which can make it just very confusing.
It is very confusing, and this is why I run my course as a course that I coach rather than having people out there trying to decipher ingredient lists with no experience, because there's a lot you need to learn to really feel confident doing it. And so, yeah, I just see all the time people say, oh no, I don't need to do that course because I use X brand. I'm like, here's the thing you actually do, because that's got X, Y, and Z in it.
Well, teaching people how to read labels to look for sugar, it's like how many different ways can they disguise sugar on an ingredient list? And it's the same thing, I think, even worse with chemicals, and just in terms of which ones might be relatively benign and which ones are really nasty.
Exactly. And so you have the situation where sometimes brands are using some nasties in a couple of their products, but not in the other products. So there's that issue as well. You can't blanket say, or you can't in every case, you can of course in some, say, yep, that whole range is great. But I will spruik too, because I really am very passionate about both of them and the sustainability work that they do and the incredible big picture thinking that they do in terms of people and planet. And that is Dr. Bronner, who I visited a couple of months ago when I was in L.A. I went down to Southern California and checked them out, and it was everything I thought that company was going to be behind closed doors. They have the greatest level of integrity you've ever seen.
Oh, that's so great to know. I've been using Dr. Bronner since I was a kid.
Just awesome, and such a lovely family-owned business. They fight for fair pay. They even did limited edition $15 an hour packaging to get the message out, and it's a really, really inspiring family. So well worth supporting if you're in the US. I mean, they're an international brand these days, but especially great for Americans.
Oh, great.
And Weleda, who are the German Swiss brand, who are also available. Like, you guys have them in Lassen's and Whole Foods, and there's a whole bunch of places that I've seen them when I've been to the US. So easy to get, and biodynamic principles. We're talking, these guys do research on when the plant is releasing the most amount of actives to pick it then, so that those actives are transferred into the body lotions and face creams and everything, which is how they're able to provide such inexpensive products with such powerful results. So I'm a big fan of both of those brands and the work they do globally. Yeah.
Great. So step one is change up the body lotion to something natural. I personally I've been a huge fan of just using oil on my skin, using coconut oil or jojoba or something. And I feel like that works great. It's one ingredient.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is just it. You could literally just get the olive oil out and put it on your body.
You really can.
Yeah, absolutely. Coconut oil is good for the body, not so great for the face, because it can be quite clogging to the teeny tiny pores on our face. But yeah, brilliant body lotion for an economic DIY option.
Yeah. Really easy. So once we've changed up our body lotion and our multi-purpose spray, what is the third thing people could start doing?
So the third thing people could start doing is, look, for me, it's getting rid of your scented candles and all of those sorts of, and fabric softener, because those
so getting rid of the air pollution stuff with the fragrance in it.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great.
There are some incredible essential oils out there. I love Young Living oils. I don't know whether you've heard of those, but they're my favorite.
There are some excellent organic essential oil lines that I use Snow Lotus in my office, and they're like organic, small batch, artisanal.
Beautiful.
They're talk about a high integrity company. I mean, that's just really, really excellent. And essential oils can be fabulous, because unlike an artificial fragrance, there's a message for the body, and it can be medicine in a large variety of ways, depending on what you're using.
Oh, 100%. And I always like to say, especially to people who live in the city, it's like a way to get straight into the middle of a whole bunch of cypresses, or it's a way to just transport yourself into a garden of jasmine. And for people who live in a really urban environment, I find them incredibly healing and grounding, because you get back to nature right there in your living room while you're cooking dinner for 3 kids. It's such a handy little balancing tool, I think, for urban dwellers especially.
Absolutely. Well, here as we're heading into fall on in this half of the world, the evergreen essential oils can be really wonderful for actually detoxifying the air instead of just making you feel like like it smells like fake strawberries.
Yeah, totally. And those scented candles, I know everyone loves to give them as simple gifts. I know everyone, loves having a collection, but trust me when I say, if you just don't burn those things for 3 weeks, give me 3 weeks, and then put one on after not having had any of those fake smells, and make sure it's your fabric softener as well, because that's a huge indoor polluter. Oh, yeah. And then use one of them again and just have a think about how you feel. Have a think about whether all of a sudden that maybe doesn't smell so great. Because in my experience, having trained over 2,000 people now in this area, everyone is always like, oh my God, I got an instant headache.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. I never realized it was poisonous. And it's because we're just slowly exposed all the time that our bodies don't even react anymore. But it doesn't
it's the frog in the pot situation, right? Where the heat gradually turns up and the frog just gets accustomed to it and dies.
Exactly. That's right. And I really don't want that to happen to us. I think humans are a bit smarter. We didn't get given these brains to be total pushovers to marketing messages selling us stuff that's toxic.
Exactly.
Those days are now done.
I know that a lot of people listening are into natural medicine. They're into natural healing. They are perhaps thinking to themselves, well, I'm not the kind of person that's hanging a fake Christmas tree, thing from my car window. And I'm not actively putting fragrances into my life, but maybe there are some sneakier sources of toxins that people might not be thinking about. I'm curious if you could help us find our blind spots on this issue. Like where do toxins sneak in around the edges that we might not even be thinking about?
Yeah, cool. So one of my favorite things is to get people thinking about their coffee cups in a takeaway setting. So if you're going and getting a takeaway cup of tea or coffee on your way to work, those lids generally tend to have BPA in them, and the cups themselves, while it might not look like anything more than a paper cup, are lined with a very fine coating of plastic to make them waterproof, or petroleum wax. So I don't know about you, but either of those options isn't super fabulous. And it's not recyclable, as many people tend to think it is.
Oh, okay.
So it's super polluting to landfill and the environment, but it's also polluting to us, because in those dodgy plastics is where things like phthalates and BPA are living.
Yes.
And so you're breathing through, you're drinking like a hot liquid through this cup, and hot liquids or hot foods in plastics are where the most amount of leaching occurs. And this is something that you've just got to go and get that beautiful reusable cup, make it a habit, be mean to yourself and say, I don't get to have a coffee if I forget my cup. And you will quick smart start remembering that thing. Trust me.
I've had that rule in place for about a decade, and it really works.
It really does. It really does.
What you just said about heat and plastics, it's like, I think a lot of people know that we're not supposed to be microwaving plastic. A lot of people don't necessarily know that freezing plastic water bottles is not an awesome idea.
Yes.
Because not only the heat, but also the cold, and that pretty much any plastic is going to leach into our food. That BPA, in terms of, I know that some companies are getting away from lining cans with it, although it's sort of the jury's still out whether the BPA substitute is just as bad. Do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so BPS is replacing most of the BPA, and the research is already coming out to say that that's not so great. Kind of like how parabens were like the arch enemy of the cosmetics world, so companies started saying paraben free to get more sales and to look like an ecologically or, human health minded company. But what they replaced it with is a chemical, for the most part, called phenoxyethanol, which now also has research to suggest that it may not be so great. And so my question to everybody out there is do not get lured by the words something free. And ask yourself, what's in it then?
Yes, what's in it instead?
Yes, and do your research. And I've got a fantastic Mother Jones article actually on what has replaced BPA. So I will send that across to you to link for everybody to read.
Awesome. More on the BPA issue. Am I right that it's worse with things like tomatoes that are acidic? You could maybe get away with like a can of beans might not be so bad, but a can of something acidic like tomatoes would be far worse.
Yes, definitely worse. But there's also research to suggest that lower level BPA exposure might, and they're really not too sure how, but they're just reporting their findings, might actually be worse itself than high levels. So, it's in an age where there is so much information coming out, so many independent tests now finally being funded and research being done. If there's anything remotely dodgy going on or reports suggest that we really should be cautious, that's not fear-mongering. That's not telling you that if you change what you're doing, you're a hippie freak outsider, fringe dweller of society. Mm-hmm. It's just saying, hey, we've found something and we reckon until we're sure, but maybe don't use that. And so for me, like if you're going to save food, save it in glass containers. Have you guys got the Pyrex brand in the States?
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So glass containers are brilliant. You don't need to worry about the silicone or, plastic lids. Just, maybe make sure the food's obviously not touching it.
Yes.
But that's absolutely fine. And then if you're going to make a big batch of broth, then make it and keep all your glass jars from everything and keep it in those. And the way that you get them not to smash and break in the freezer is just by making sure you've got a good inch off the top from the liquid to the lid for that liquid to expand as it freezes. And then you've got all these fantastic individual sizes for casseroles and just making yourself a little quick soup whenever you need to defrost them. But I really think plastics should just, in terms of everyday home use, there's absolutely no need for them at all.
Mm-mm. I couldn't agree more.
We save it for the hospitals. We save it for the life-saving stuff. We save it for the precious resource that it is. But we do not need our lunch boxes, our drink bottles, and our food storage to be plastic. It's such an easy swap.
Yes. The endocrine disrupting chemicals, those can affect, you mentioned estrogen, but also the thyroid. I know that thyroid is another complaint that I see a lot of, especially women coming in with, and that a lot of the causes of thyroid disrupting chemicals are the flame retardants in furniture and mattresses and things like that. And I heard a bit of positive news that actually a way to protect ourselves from those particular thyroid disrupting chemicals in mattresses is to take probiotics, which I think it fits right into what you were saying earlier about like boosting the immune system. It's like a pathogen. It's like something from the outside world that's coming in that's screwing up our ecosystem. And I thought that was fascinating that probiotics, probably because of their immune boosting effects, can actually be protective for the thyroid.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff we can do in flame retardant land now. There are a lot of manufacturers answering to the call of consumers who want safer options. We've got a couple of fantastic mattress makers now here in Australia. Or if you don't want to change your mattress because you think, oh my God, but I just spent $3,000 on that mattress, last year. She's telling me I got to swap my mattress now to some $5,000 organic or, organic latex version or whatever you end up starting to research. But one of my favorite things is to just think about distancing yourself from that mattress a bit. And a natural latex mattress topper is a great way to do that. Just so that what you're actually sleeping on is not the thing that has the flame retardants in it. You've kind of got a good buffer there. And the other great thing for flame retardants is whenever you buy anything of the variety of something stuffed, like a mattress, a cushion, a sofa, any of those sorts of things, to just sun it out in your yard for a good couple of days. If you can do a week, even better, and just let all of those VOCs off gas, including those flame retardants, and you will significantly reduce your exposure by doing that as well.
Awesome idea. Yeah, right. Like there's no need to take that brand new thing into your house when it's still essentially radiating toxins. And yeah. You've given us so many excellent, empowering tips. I really appreciate it.
You're really welcome.
If people are curious about the work that you do, how can they best get in touch with you?
So my central website is lowtoxlife.com, and Low Tox Life is also my Instagram account, and I love sharing little stories and pictures on there as well. What I'm cooking, things that I'm trying in the beauty world that are natural. And then, of course, I've got 3 courses. If you're really passionate about sustainability and food and want to try and get your head around what's going on and wanting to maybe move towards organic, but finding that idea really mentally and financially challenging, then it's it's a brilliant course you can take anytime called Real Food Rockstars, which you can join straight from the homepage of my website. Or I've got 2 other courses that are live coached, and we run those twice a year each. And that's Go Low Tox, which by the time we have this chat go live will have just finished, but the next round's in February. So join the expression of interest list and you'll hear from me. It's fully resourced for the UK, Australia and the US, so everybody has plenty of information to get started on. And what else? The other one, Thrive, raising kids who love real food. Because I think in the West, I'm half French. And, you know, when I think about my family holidays to France and to Mauritius, where my French side of the family is from, there's just no issue with kids eating absolutely everything that adults eat. There's no issue with manners. There's no issue with making a kid eat. There's none of those issues. But I started to see as my child grew up, he's 7 now, but you know, just when we were babies in the park and then they were toddlers at daycare and then in the schoolyard and then having their friends over, I was thinking, oh my gosh, my kid's looks like some freaking genius because he simply eats his food. And what are we doing that is making him such a, you know, just think that real food is the normal choice? And what are other parents perhaps not seeing in terms of their efforts to try and get kids to love real food? So I created a course around that with a wonderful other coach, Brenda Janczek, and it's a really powerful resource for any parents who are struggling to get their kids to love real food. We cover everything: body image, fussy eating, nutrient density, immunity, gut health, everything. And it's just
in a way that kids actually can relate to, in a way,
yes.
or that,
oh yeah.
That's amazing.
So we're teaching the parents, but we give them, I give them Star Wars script scenarios on how to explain gut health using stormtroopers and, you know, just stuff that the kids are going to understand. And like my little guy knows that if he has, you know, a lollipop every day, like I'm fine for him to have a nice little organic lollipop at a birthday party. I'll always bring one because I just don't do the GM crazy sugar beet stuff that's out there in Chopper Chop land. So I'll always just bring one so he feels involved and no one thinks he's different. Once the thing's unwrapped, no one knows it's a different lollipop and makes me happy and him happy. But he knows that if he has that every day, that's bad for his bad guys. The bad guys will multiply and turn into a strong army, and then they'll start killing the good guys, and then he'll get sick.
It's a beautiful analogy. I love it.
So simple. And I've been telling him that since he was 2. He gets it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and we teach them how to teach their kids about food marketing and how to become smart little detectives. And it really gets the kids on side and empowered instead of that model which we currently have in the West, which is, and you know, everyone out there will be going, oh yeah, that one, where we say, no, you can't have that. Or eat your broccoli.
It's setting up a power dynamic instead of really letting them.
Absolutely. If you look at the Europeans and the Middle Eastern families all sitting around to tables together, sharing, chatting, connecting, you know, we really need to get more of that happening. There's too many TV dinners happening out there, and it's not only to the detriment of the nutrition and appreciation of food that our children then unfortunately don't grow up with, but also connectedness as a family.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think I feel incredibly grateful when my family can sit down and have a meal together. We strive to make it happen as often as possible. And it's something that I'm tremendously grateful for. And the fact that it's a natural place to open a dialogue about what we're putting into our bodies and why.
Yeah, exactly. And to also not make it always about the food. This is the other funny thing. Yes. Like to actually just chat about your day. Like why does everything have to be about whether we do or don't like the food? Right. And I think with all the cooking shows and the obsession with what is healthy, what isn't, we can all end up actually talking to and about food way too much. Yes. When food is, you know, and Chinese medicine is one of the best examples of this. It is so many things in our life, not just the actual physical food itself.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Well, Alexx, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me today and to share all of your amazing knowledge and your analogies with everyone listening. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. It was an absolutely wonderful chat. I look forward to anyone reaching out who wants to online or wherever to ask any further questions or just join the community.
Great.
Thanks for listening today. For more episodes of A Healthy Curiosity, you can visit the iTunes store. If you appreciated today's show, please leave us a review. This helps other people to find the podcast. You could also head to brodywelch.com, where you can find free self-care resources, learn more about Chinese medicine, and let me know what you'd like to hear about on future episodes. I'd love to hear from you. Till next time, be good to yourself.